Hello YouTubers and fellow Square Enix fans, this is Daryl from Final Fantasy Fan, and today I'm gonna do a Let's Play Warhammer Shadow of the Horned Rat. I bought it from GOG and GOG, good old games, and I bought it for like €1.70, and this game is very close to my heart. I played this game a lot of times. Well, actually it's a sequel, Dark Omen. I played it a lot of times when I was a kid. And I'm gonna do a let's play about this and do every mission, get all the magic items, see if I can keep all my units alive, that kind of thing. And I found a file which is the manual of the game. It's a whopping 127 pages, which is quite a lot. But I actually want to go to introducing the Grudgebringers, because I think this gives a little bit of introduction about Commander Bernard, which is our commander. So I'm gonna try and read this, or you can read along. And after this, I'll start the game. So, introducing the Grudgebringers. In the Shadow of the Horned Rat, you assume the role of Morgan Bernard, the commander of the Grudgebringer mercenaries and leaders of the Grudgebringer cavalry regiment. Your goal is to earn a king's ransom in gold and swell the ranks of your army to become the most powerful and notorious in the land. To realize your ambitions, you must hack your way through many bloody missions, offered to you by wealthy patrons who will pay you to do well to do their dirty work for them. But there is a bigger picture. As your conquests are rewarded, evidence will emerge of an evil plot within the Empire. Will you have the cunning and might to crush it? And then here's a little bit story about our commander. Morgan Bernard is the eldest son of Graf Bernard of Nuln. His father is a wealthy and influential merchant in the ancient Reichland city. It is said to control the traffic of over 5 of the bridges of Nuln, including the Great Drawbridge over the Reich. He hence has something of a grip of commerce, which enters and exits Nuln and so commands great wealth. As is tradition in Nuln, the eldest sons of the wealthy families are sent to the Officers' Academy of the Great Gunnery School. Morgan Bernard was no exception, and he spent 4 years learning the skills of command, strategy and leadership. He gained a reputation as a gifted yet troublesome student, graduating top of every class in which he could be bothered to attend. The study of artillery bored him senseless, and for the young Bernhard, the glamour of cavalry attracted him like a magnet. He could outright the Reichsguard knights who sometimes visited Nuln in all their finery, and took great pains to goad these young lords to take part in an elaborate competition involving horses and huge sums of money wherever possible. Eventually, Morgan Bernard's fiery temper and unrepentant sense of misadventure was his undoing. He was thrown out of the academy for gross insubordination, dueling and a misappropriation of college funds. This was his first step along a great career as a mercenary captain. Determined to put his fighting to a queen's skills to the test, Bernard attempted to prove his rights to join the Knights of the Blazing Sun, the Ninth Panther, and even the Knights of the White Wolf in Middenheim. All refused to recognize his cleverly crafted representative of why he should be counted among their number. And his checkered history dodged him like a curse, catching up eventually wherever he went. He was even refused a place in the Empire Pistoliers, to his great chagrin and delight of his peers. Essentially not a bad man, the young Bernhard was a slave to his ego and temper. He wanted the battle, glory, honor and riches, if only to prove his contemporaries, whom he considered to be dull by and large, that he was more than equal in every respect. And so it was that, kicking his heels in Nuln, he met with Gunther Shepke. Gunther was a hard-bitten mercenary, commanding a small but extremely tough bunch of halberdiers known as Shepke 16. The name came from a new infamous battle at Blackfire Pass, some 10 years ago, when Shepke and his battle-scarred mercenaries held off over 200 orcs for 5 hours, while the baggage train they guarded retreated into safety of the Empire. At the end of the battle, only 16 of Shepke's initial force of 50 survived. The greenskins were slain to the last goblin. The mercenary explained their suicidal defense of the convoy simply by the fact that theirs was a fixed sum contract, and the money initially due for 15 now were to mere 16. Not only that, but the gold to pay the mercenaries rested in the rearmost wagons of the convoy, a shrewd move by the convoy's paymaster. Shepke recognized a kindred spirit in the young Bernhard, and a few evenings of drinking and discussion soon acquainted the old soldier with Morgan's superb grasp of tactics and soldiership. All theoretical, old man, all theoretical, lamented the drunk Morgan one evening after a lengthy session at Kippard Herring, one of the less salubrious drinking houses of Nuln. So, my young captain, you want to fight, eh? Growled Shepke, rubbing his stubborn chin thoughtfully. There's ways and means if you really have the fire in your belly. I want to lead, exclaimed Morgan, slamming the tankard on the table. I have the knowledge and the skill, and you can follow me if you will. How many years have you been scraping for a living? 5? 10? 15? Well, show me then, man, and I'll put together a fighting force to shame the Reiksguard, and the Panthers, and the whining White Wolves of Middenheim to boot. Morgan's eyes were blazing with fury, and inspired determination. Are you with me? Well, are you? Morgan slumped in his chair, drumming his fingers on the coarse wooden table. Most of the drunken warriors in the alehouse had of course been listening to the words of Bernhard. In fact, they could hardly miss his rousing ragings. Although Morgan's questions were addressed to Shepke, after a moment's silence the alehouse erupted with a hubbub of cheering and shouting. I'm with you. Count us in. We're your men. The young Morgan looked shocked and a little embarrassed by the furore of what he had started, but Shepke sat back and grinned his wolfish grin. He saw a great leader in the making, a rising star. Standing up, he waved the rest of his men to quiet and addressed the throng. We're all fighting men, and this here is Captain Morgan Bernhard, our leader. He's a tactical genius and a great fighter on horse and on foot. We'll do the swearing in afterwards, but those of you who are in, get to the bar. The drinks are on the captain. The rush for the bar was a good sign as his new man's loyalty as any could wish, and Bernhard was left riffling through his pockets. I've not the gold to pay, he began, whispering desperately to Shepke. Ah, I still will need some with an eye for gold, answered Shepke, nodding sagely. He backed into the shadows. Let me introduce you, Mr. Dietrich von Schweitzer, the canniest paymaster you'll ever like to meet this side of the Blackfire Pass. A scrawny individual with beady eyes and long grasping fingers etched into view, nodding as if possessed. Very good, very good. Yes, very good indeed, young Bernhard. I know your father, you know, clever man. Pleased to meet you. His quiet whispering voice had a steel edge to it, as he peered over the rims of his spectacles. I expect you will be needing an advance on our first pay to job for tonight's drinks. Let's just say this will be an affirmation of determination to our cause. After all, you will risk your lives, while I risk that which is most precious to me, my gold. At that point, as if things could not get more unlikely, a cloaked stranger stepped forth from a darkened clove. His robe was red, and his flaming beard matched his crimson hue. He was obviously very old, and somewhat the worse for drink, but cheerily impressed nonetheless. Small sparks flickered at his fingertips, and wisps of grey smoke curled every so often from his flared nostrils. A rousing speech, young man. Well done. Well done indeed. Varder championing you, that's for sure. That's what we need around here. Too many fops and dandies for my liking. He narrowed his eyes conspiraciously and his voice lowered to a whisper. Burn him to a crisp, I say. I can do it too, you know. At that he reared up, hiccupped, and sent a gout of flame up towards the ceiling, whilst a nimbus of sparks licked around his head. The occupants of the alehouse, who were not already at the bar, made for it double speed, or left the inn by the back door. Fighting for gold was one thing. Wizards and drunken bright wizards at that was another altogether. You'll go far, mark my words, the wizard exclaimed, waging his blazing finger sagely at Bernhard. I only wish I were young enough to... But no matter. I've done more than enough in my time. Hold a moment, I'll be back. And with that he stomped off to his alcove, leaving glowing embers where his feet trod the wooden boards. Who in blazes? Exclaimed Morgan. He's a raving mad. He could burn the whole place down. Not so loud, sir. That's Darius Redhand III, one of the arch-wizards lord of the bright college of Altdorf. Often comes this way for a bit of local color, or so he says. Shepke's growling whisper bade the commander be silent. He appeared to have caught his eye. The old wizard stumped back into view, carrying a scabbard. On close view, the scabbard was fashioned in black leather, so worn that any inscriptions or decorations were long since worn away. When he reached Bernhard, Redhand drew the blade, and the sound was a musical ringing that only left the finest of blades could ever replicate. Runes burned on its blade, illuminating the alehouse with a glorious blazing light. Red Hand waved it around, vaguely for a few moments, and then he sheathed the blade again, quenching its fire. Dangerous things, magical swords, always trying to get out, you know. The old wizard paused for a moment, then cleared his throat. This is Grudgebringer, forged by the dwarves, and as they all seem to be these days, a weapon of great power. Red Hand uttered the later as if the sword expected, no, demanded that the words be said. The required formal introduction for a presence superior than any other in the Hill House. Red Hand held the scabbard out to the hesitating Bernard. Well, go ahead. Go ahead, man, take it. You'll make better use of it than I am, going at my age. It's always thirsting for battle, when I've not been in one for years now. It's only fair to free the blasted thing. Though we've had some glorious times, you know. The aged wizard thrust the scabbard into Bernard's hand, nodded sagely, then turned and stalked out of the inn. Grudgebringer demands respect, young man. He has some great powers if you treat him well. And with the last retort, he was gone into the night, leaving a swirl of sparks and embers onto the air. Morgan would wonder for the rest of his life if he had seen tears in old Redhand's glittering eyes as he left his favorite blade behind him. And so the unlikely partnership was forged, and the Grudgebringers came into existence. With Shepka's experience and Bernhardt's tactical brilliance and flair for leadership, success was inevitable. And von Schweitzer's suggestion, they began campaigning in the Reichland, earning a reputation as a hard-nosed bunch of professional soldiers who achieved whatever task they were set with grim determination. And they very rarely failed. If bonuses were offered, the Grudgebringers fulfilled the condition to the letter. If patrons reneged on the deal, retribution was swift, violent, and just. The Grudgebringers soon became known alternately as Bernard's private army, a small force of utterly professional mercenaries with their own code of honor. And back in Nuln, the aging Graf Bernard smiled his secret smile of pride whenever he heard the latest tales of his eldest son, ever-growing chain of glorious victories. So, guys, that's the story about the Grudgebringers. And it actually gives you a bit of information on how you start the game, because you start with two companies. You start with the Grudgebringer Cavalry and the Grudgebringer Infantry. The Grudgebringer Cavalry is led by Commander Bernard, and the Grudgebringer Infantry is being led by Lieutenant Shepke. You also hear a bit about Dietrich, who is your paymaster. And you start off with the Grudgebringer sword, which is where your whole mercenary army is named after, and it also tells you how you got that sword. So I always think that this is important for people to know. It gives a little bit of backstory to the campaign. It's quite a few pages. I will be able to get a physical copy of this once, because it just looks amazing, especially with the art in the manual. Here, for example, some forest goblins, night goblins. Yeah, night goblins advance through Blackfire Pass. Squiggins. So this looks really cool. And it's just a lot of information. I actually had to check on this as well, because when you're deploying your units, I know you can rotate them, but I didn't know how to. And I just learned that you can actually hold control, so you can rotate your characters into the right position. So, this is the pre-info, and from here on I'm gonna start my Let's Play. So this is Daryl from Final Fantasy Fan. I thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get updated with regular content. In my next video, we'll start the campaign. See you till the next.